I would like to show you a tale of two people in regards to strength or weakness in this case, two people in regards to standing up for a particular principle versus phoning it in on Twitter. I'm greatly annoyed by something that I just came across because it is utterly astonishing that people who haven't the courage of their convictions, who've become parodies of themselves, can speak out of turn and attack and smear somebody representing their party because they don't particularly like this person and use this thing of, oh, they're a Russian asset, they're a Putin puppet, they're a Assad puppet, or whatever they want to use as they're castigating this particular person. But it's one particular refrain that this particular person was using that has set me off. Before I even get into it, I want to, no, let me show you this first. This is AOC. AOC came out on MSNBC, a basket case of a network at this point, with people who are losing their mind and need literal psychological help, like Joy Ann Reid. And she is sitting there with that person who really deeply and truly requires psychological help, deranged Joy Ann Reid. And AOC tells Joy Ann Reid that Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to national security, but more to the point, is pro-war. That Tulsi Gabbard is pro-war. Said don't trust them because Tulsi Gabbard is pro-war. The level of hypocrisy is overwhelming. AOC supported Joe Biden, who is right now trying to push this country to the brink of thermonuclear war. Let's put that in context. And she's sitting here saying that somebody else who's been trying to stop that war, who's been consistent on one war after the next, especially these regime change wars that the United States gets involved in, she's been consistent. AOC has been nowhere to be found. And I would wager that that twit knows nothing about what takes place off the shores of this country, or for that matter, how much we invest into pushing American policy, even when it means overthrowing governments. And Tulsi, who has taken slings and arrows from all sorts of people in the orthodoxy that loves that war or loves those wars. And AOC will sit here on a basket case of a network talking to deranged Joy Ann Reid, and with a level of radical hypocrisy, say, the Tulsi Gabbard, the one who's being hit for being anti-war in this case. And it's not that Tulsi is anti-war. Tulsi is a Zionist through and through, but saw all of them for all intents and purposes. And yeah, she has this idea that there's a fight for supremacy against radical Islam. But when you're looking for consistency on message, when you're looking at somebody who's been willing to take a hit in order to continuously push that message that we are engaged in regime change wars, it doesn't help us. It needs to stop. I was a soldier. I was there. I could see it for myself. We need to stop this. She has taken the hit over and over again and has retained her shape. You, on the other hand, are a parody of yourself. You got into this saying we need to primary some folks. We need to get some of these people out here so we can get our policies through. And over time became Mama Bear, or Baby Bear to Mama Bear, Nancy Pelosi, and became a good little soldier, attacking people like Jill Stein, third parties, or for that matter, voters. And now you're hitting Gabbard. Now you're hitting Gabbard. And I would put forth, you don't have a leg to stand on, especially considering the people in your own party that is A, been committing a genocide, and B, is pushing us to the brink of war. There's a reason why the majority of the American public, A, chose Donald Trump and chose him winning the popular vote. But when you dig into the details of election outvotes, basically exit polling, and you ask those people, hey, who did you trust more on foreign policy? As much of a wild card as Donald Trump is, they trusted him more on foreign policy. And what was the foreign policy that Donald Trump espoused? We need to stop having these wars. They don't do anything for us. And who has lumped into that also because she's been consistent on that front? Tulsi Gabbard. Kamala Harris would have been just as bad on foreign policy, just as spineless as Joe Biden. Tulsi has been willing to take the hit and remain who she is on these various issues to which she invests herself in regards to we need to stop these regime change wars, one of which being Ukraine. I would wager to you that AOC knows nothing about this, and yet she would stick her neck out, being a good little soldier for the Democratic Party, a bankrupt, losing party, in order to hit Tulsi. Just outrageous. I'm going to play this clip. This is her calling herself, putting a knife in Tulsi Gabbard, because Tulsi Gabbard has just been Donald Trump's pick for DNI director.
To Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information, and Russia loves it, loves her.
And I actually think almost more than Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment is devastating. And Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, as much as she says that she's an anti-war person, she's not.
Yeah.
She supports very pro-war individuals.
Including
abroad.
in Syria.
And let's be very clear, a Tulsi Gabbard nomination is a pro-war nomination.
You're a dumbass. You're an outright dumbass. And you're a weak dumbass at that. You know nothing of what you are talking about. You are effectively taking the position of the terrorists who were trying to overthrow that government, getting 500,000 people in that country killed. Obama did that as a regime change war because he wanted to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. Now, you probably don't know that. And because you don't know that, and the only thing you hear is mainstream media and the other people in your bubble, or for that matter, cult, you will come out and attack her for this. Something, by the way, that she was doing that was right. The notion that you are okay with getting all of these people killed in order to overthrow another government is outrageous. And her saying so got her hit by mainstream media and, for that matter, members of her own party, because the person who was at the head of that party as they were doing the regime change war in Syria was Barack Obama, or for that matter, Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State. I want to show you a picture of weakness. I've been looking for this clip for a while. And what I mean by a picture of weakness, you have a point of view. That point of view gets tested, and your response after it gets tested. And I want to show you AOC. When AOC was asked about the occupation in Gaza, she wilts like a flower, literally caves in on herself. It even takes her a moment to figure out, what are my lines? I don't know my lines. I don't know much about this. I don't know my lines. It's the saddest thing you would ever see, because at the end of the day, when somebody needed to stand up and say, yes, it's an occupation, I said exactly what I meant. And if you would have seen her before she got into politics, I would wager to you, she would have had no issue saying, this is an occupation. They are treating these people miserably as they steal and expropriate more land. God damn it, I'm going to stand by it. Yes, that's what I said, an occupation. Well, you can't get that out of her. Listen to her firing line. Listen to the question when the woman rebuffs what AOC is saying and asks her to clarify.
Yes, but I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that to me is just where I tend to come from on this issue.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think
I need my lines. I need my lines. I can't remember my lines. You said, I said occupation. She doesn't like that I said occupation. What do I say now? What do I say? I don't know what I'm supposed to say because I know dick about anything beyond these shores. Let's see what she comes up with.
What I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also I am not the expert at geopolitics on this issue, you know?
No, you're not. You're not. You're not. And you're not even an ally on this issue. You withered like a shriveling penis in a cold wind. Just Tulsi would have answered that if she would have believed that. That's the difference. And to make my point, this is Tulsi on CNN when she took a trip to Syria that mainstream media hated her for, that the Obama administration hated her for. She went with Dennis Kucinich and she went to see for herself what was taking place on the ground. This is how you handle these situations, not like AOC. And the point I'm trying to make here is AOC is sitting there attacking Tulsi Gabbard and doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. At the end of the day, when you are looking for somebody who's been rather consistent on this notion of we need to stop these wars, it's been Tulsi Gabbard. The one time that I saw AOC say anything about war, and at this point, her party is the pro-war party. They derided J.D. Vance and Donald Trump for even having the temerity to talk about ending a war, or for that matter, sitting down with Kim Jong-un in order to get him to stop firing missiles in the Sea of Japan. They derided them for being willing to make peace as opposed to having these endless wars. She had nothing to say about that. Zero to say about that. Short of, we got to elect Kamala Harris. We got to elect Kamala Harris. Or we got to collect Joe Biden. It's outrageous. Tulsi Gabbard should sue the hell out of both of them for saying this nonsense. This, you saw AOC fall apart. This is Tulsi when confronting somebody who doesn't like her for taking this trip and is going against mainstream orthodoxy on issues of war and peace.
But they expressed a question. They said, why is it that the United States, its allies and other countries are providing support, are providing arms to terrorist groups like al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, Arar al-Sham, ISIS, who are on the ground there raping, kidnapping, torturing, and killing the Syrian people, children, men, women, people of all ages. They asked me, why is the United States and its allies supporting these terrorist groups who are destroying Syria when it was al-Qaeda who attacked the United States on 9/11, not Syria? I didn't have an answer for them.
Obviously, the United States government denies providing any sort of help to the terrorist groups that you're talking about. They say they provide help for the rebel groups. Tell us more about.
Did you hear what he said? Well, the government says it's not doing that. It's not providing help to the terrorist groups. It's providing help to the rebel groups. The rebel groups are the terrorist groups. Jake may or may not know that, but they were the terrorist groups. They were changing the name of these people, but by all intents and purposes, it was the same motley crew of terrorists. In fact, when Donald Trump got into office, Trump killed the program. Behind the sudden death of a $1 billion secret CIA war in Syria. The end came quickly for one of the costliest covert action programs in the history of the CIA. During the White House briefing early last month, the CIA director, Mike Pompeo, recommended to President Trump that he shut down a 4-year effort to arm and train Syrian rebels. The president swiftly ended the program. The rebel army at that point was a shell of itself, hollowed out by more than a year bombing by Russian planes and confined by ever-shrinking patches of Syria that the government troops had not recognized. Now, what they're talking about is a regime change war that Obama was waging in Syria, that Tulsi Gabbard came out and said, hey, we really should stop doing that. That's not a good thing for us to do. And we're getting a lot of people killed in the process of doing it. She got hit for that over and over and over again. They call it an aside toady. They called her a useful idiot. They called her every name in the book, and damn it, she was right. We got 500,000 people killed in order for Obama to knock over the Assad government. If it wasn't for the Russians coming in and the Iranians coming in, invited, by the way, the terrorists would have taken the whole thing just like ISIS took Iraq. Right now, we are still there, clinging on to a patch of dirt that covers the oil fields and, for the matter, the wheat fields, in a way, because we couldn't win it and because we effectively lost, we didn't want to give it up. So they held on to wheat, held on to oil in order to deprive the government of those items. That's what we did in Syria. Tulsi Gabbard continued this. She went on another show, CNN, also, again, hostile territory, something AOC would never do. She would never do this.
And this is my greatest concern. And the reason for this is because after Iraq, the United States went ahead and did the very same thing in Libya and overthrowing Gaddafi. Now ISIS is growing in strength, has a stronghold in Libya today with plans to continue to expand. And what's even crazier is that now the United States policy is looking to do the very same thing once again in Syria, with this focus and determination on overthrowing the Syrian government of Assad, which will only serve to make ISIS stronger in.
Again, I want to highlight, she's saying this in hostile territory. In hostile territory. And again, she is right. We did overthrow the government of Syria. Hillary Clinton giggled, laughed, thought it was the funniest thing in the world that Gaddafi got sodomized with a machete. They were selling Black slaves in Libya, one of the richest countries in Africa. They were selling Black slaves in that country. Think of the irony of the first Black president presiding over an action that gets thousands of people killed, and on top of that, results in the selling of Black slaves also. AOC probably couldn't even find Syria or Libya on a map, and yet has the neck to go after Tulsi. Here's another one. I'm showing this for consistency.
What you do here is warmongers arguing that we must protect Ukraine because it is a quote unquote democracy. But they're lying. Ukraine isn't actually a democracy. For example, to hold on to power, Ukraine's president shut down the 3 TV stations that were openly criticizing him and his policies, imprisoned the head of the opposition political party that had come in second place in their elections, and went and arrested and jailed that party's leaders. This is exactly what Putin has been accused of doing. But Ukraine did this all with the support of the United States.
Once again, AOC will never have the courage, the intellect, or the poise to be in either a hostile interview and take an unpopular opinion that bucks the orthodoxy of her party or of, for that matter, the US government blob on the issue of war. She wouldn't do it. She doesn't have it in her. Tulsi Gabbard does, which is the reason why Donald Trump chose her for the D&I pick, because she's been consistent on these issues of we need to stop these regime change wars. Ukraine was a regime change war. Syria was a regime change war. Libya was a regime change war. And if we're the good guys, how are we getting all of these people killed? And to what benefit does it serve the regular Bob, Tom, Tyrone, Shaniqua, or any other random American that you may run into on the street? How does it serve our interests to get all of these people killed? And when Gabbard comes out and says so, she's smeared for it. She's smeared for it. Even by that joke of a politician, AOC, that at this point She just called herself a Democrat because that's all she is. I can't believe the Democratic Socialists would even keep her in their midst at this point. She is an embarrassment. AOC, you are a humiliation. You are a parody of yourself. The reality of it is, Tulsi on this is correct. She's perfectly correct. She's not a perfect person, but nobody's a perfect person. And yeah, there's certain issues that Tulsi is more, let's say, aggressive about than I would be. But all things equal, when you're looking at the tapestry of politicians that you have at your disposal, she is one of the better ones. And she has been willing to call a spade in the face of withering opposition, even from the likes of twits and know-nothings like AOC herself. AOC, you're an embarrassment. You're a complete, utter, astonishing level embarrassment. And the idea that you're going to attack somebody calling them pro-war when they consistently, over the years, have been very clear that this country needs to stop these regime change wars. We need to stop engaging the world with fists, and we can be a better steward of the world, of the global status, meaning we get nothing out of these wars. And either AOC doesn't know or AOC is just following orders. But again, a complete and utter parody of yourself. I'm going to say like, I'm going to say share, I'm going to say subscribe. This video aggravates the hell out of me. When people are doing something that's right, they should be supported for it. And the idea that we decide we want to knock over the government of Ukraine in order to get a platform closer to Russia and use the Ukrainians as a battering ram, okay, well, that's outrageous. You got 500,000 people killed in that process. That's evil. That's sociopathy on a level that is breathtaking. AOC doesn't care about that. AOC has nothing to say about that. AOC probably couldn't even find Ukraine on a map. Same thing with Syria. Why are we getting all of these people killed? Whatever you think of Assad, is it really worth killing 500,000 people? And does that really make you the good guy by training terrorists to use as a battering ram? That's outrageous. And when it happened in Iraq, spending $7 trillion to do it, and we learned nothing, going into other countries, continuing that process. AOC doesn't know that. Either she's lying through her teeth or she doesn't know it. Both of those situations are horrible because you have effectively smeared somebody that had the courage, and for that matter, even the devotion to her country, to put on her uniform and actually go out and fight for the country while you were serving drinks at the bar. Just outrageous. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all. Oh, I have one. LEJJ. Thank you, LEJ. Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. AOC is a damn embarrassment. I'll end it on that.